to Sisters on a Soapbox. So, tonight we're going to be talking about something that was inevitable. This is an election year, and ever since I started voting in 2008, we've heard every election cycle this is the most crucial, most important election of our lifetime. And while maybe this isn't the most crucial, this has been a really eventful election season. We've seen attempted assassinations, incumbents not returning for re-election. So we have a lot of thoughts and a lot of things to talk about this election season and where we should stand as Americans and where we should stand as believers and what Scripture has to say about these parties and these platforms that we're going to be voting for. All right, Abby, so kick us off. What are your thoughts going into this election?
Well, my first thought was, I'm so scared of talking about this. That was one of the things when you first pitched the podcast idea, like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to talk about politics and I'm going to offend everybody. Because I do feel like I don't really fit in anywhere in politics. And I know that my thoughts will definitely offend Democrats. And I'm pretty sure my thoughts will definitely offend some Republicans. So it is controversial. But I think as Christians, we're always going to be going back to the Bible. And so when we vote, even if we take away all of the political names and even the party names, we have to zoom into what is the role of government? And the Bible tells us that the role of government is to restrain evil and to promote good. And I get that from 1 Peter 2:14. It talks about the government's role being to restrain evil and to promote good. So just boiling it down, when we go to the ballot box, we're asking who of these people are going to restrain the most evil and promote the most good.
Yeah, and that's really hard. Like I said, I was old enough to vote for the first time in 2008, and I feel like I have not had the opportunity to vote for someone who I was really excited about in a general election. I have been excited about some primary candidates that I've been able to vote for, but never, since 2008 have I just been really excited about casting my vote in the general election. So I pray that one day we have an election that I'm really excited about all the candidate options. But like you said, as believers, we're not fully represented by either party. And that's a sad thing, because when we look at all the issues, it feels like everyone's too far left at this point. And I think that I think we have to look at the parties and what they represent. And like you said, which one's the least evil at this point? Because as a believer, I can feel marginalized by the Republican Party, but I can't meet the Democratic Party on a single issue. And I'm not necessarily a one-issue voter, but there are some issues that, knowing that this party stands for this particular thing, I can't go any farther than that. Yeah. And for me specifically, that comes down to abortion
100%.
And what I believe about human life. And if I know that this party stands for these things that I think are purely innately evil at their very core with no justification, I can't go any farther than that. So I can see how it would be hard for a believer to align themselves with the Republican Party. Yeah. But I can't see any justification for a believer to be able to vote for the Democratic Party at this point.
I completely agree with you. I think Christians cannot, in good conscience, vote for a Democratic candidate. The chairman of the DNC just a few years ago said that there was no room for pro-life people in their party. And their party platform is so entangled. It relies on abortion, not just allowing it, but promoting it. They want more. And when we're talking about restraining evil, there is nothing more evil. There is nothing more unjust than the taking of innocent life. So it is hard for me to get beyond that point in the discussion, beyond abortion. Um, and I think what you said too is really good to go back to, that both parties are too to the left. A lot of
Especially on this
times,
issue.
yes, yeah, now too. This is kind of a recent development, that the Republican National Convention just took off their stance on life. Like it doesn't matter anymore. And now it is sad, but we don't really have a conservative party. Definitely on the issue of life, but more and more, we just don't have a conservative party. Even the LGBTQ issue and homosexuality and I was gonna say homosexual marriage, but that's not marriage because God defined marriage, and that's not
Right.
what God says it is. So it's not that. So pretend marriage. Now Republicans have really backed off of their stance on that too. But I think going back to what you said, our issue with both parties is that they are too far left. And progressive Christians today talk about being in between the parties, like, oh, a little bit of the Democrat stance is right and a little bit of the Republican stance is right. And I could not disagree with that more. When I say I don't fit into these parties, I mean both parties are radically to the left of where I am and where I believe a biblical Christian should be. My perception is that Republicans are cruising toward the edge of a cliff, and Democrats are pedal to the metal to the edge of the cliff. And I don't want to go off of a cliff. So that's my problem. And so I don't want people to hear me say, oh, a little bit of the Democrats are right and a little bit of the Republicans are right. No, they're all just wrong.
Yeah. And it really is a hard place to be because then we put ourselves in a place where we have to compromise on a lot of issues. And as Christians, it should burden us to compromise on this issue. We should be excited about some of the things that we're hearing because there are some Republican candidates that some of the things they say in terms of the economy and national security, they really excite me, and I'm excited about those issues. But when we watch a presidential debate and we listen to two candidates argue about at which point is murder okay? Oh, certainly not after 16 weeks or, not after an abortion pill. And then we have this side all the way to 9 months. It's hard for me to sit there and listen to people talk about at what point murder is okay, because your geographic location shouldn't matter. If you're in the womb or outside of the womb, murder is murder. And as Americans, we believe that everybody has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so if we don't protect life, that's just unconstitutional and it's unbiblical. And we have a constitution that says we will fight for people to have a right to life. And now we're arguing about when it's okay to take away that right.
Yeah, that was really hard for me to listen to. And I hope it doesn't come off that I'm being more critical of the Republican candidate and the Republican Party than the Democrat Party. But so much of the Democrat stance seems obvious. Like I don't even have to engage with it. But the Republican stance, I think that's why it might seem like I'm being more critical of, is because I expect more and I want more there. And so it was painful to listen to be like, the abortion pill is fine, but, well, in America, the abortion pill counts for over 80% of the abortions that happen. And so if you're okay with 80% of the murders that are taking place, it's getting hard. It's getting hard for me. And I'm getting tired. And I think America can sympathize with this. I'm getting tired of being told that I have to choose the lesser evil. I'm just tired of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a place that we find ourselves in. And like I said, I can understand why people would struggle voting for the Republican candidate that we have right now, but I can't understand why any believer could support a Democratic candidate at this point.
Yeah.
But we are fierce patriots. we were so blessed in the way that we were raised. But one thing that we got to see such a really nice picture of was we had a dad who dedicated his life to serving this country. And so we fiercely love this country and the soldiers who sacrifice so much for it. And we want so badly for this country to pivot back, to turn back. And so we do feel like it is a obligation to educate yourself and to cast your vote and to reach out to your politicians and tell them, hey, we are registered Republicans and you've marginalized us.
Yeah.
You're leaving us behind. Come back. And so I think it's important for us to not just sit at home and say, oh, I don't know what we're going to do because we've been left behind and no party aligns with us. I think we have an obligation to reach out and say, hey, you said some really great things, but this is important to us and this is an issue that you can walk back on. So I think not just letting it go there, but reaching out to these people. We have access to them, our senators, our governors, and vote well, because there are candidates out there who still believe in life. And we see that they don't often get very far, but perhaps if we as believers were a stronger voice and we're a stronger advocate, believers are doing a lot of really good things. I think that we do really fight for life and we do show up. But perhaps at the ballot box, we could do a little bit better.
Yeah, I definitely don't think we need to be hopeless. And I understand I'm a little pessimistic. When I listen to other political commentators, I realize I'm more pessimistic than a lot of people. But I did wear, if you're watching us on YouTube, I wore a shirt with stars on it today, just to show that I do love this country. I really do. And that's why I'm so disappointed in our options. It's because I do love this country and I pray for this country and I do vote and I do write my senators. And so in America, we shouldn't be hopeless. We do have a voice. It is small, and I know that it feels small, but we should exercise our voice when we can and in the ways that we can.
I also think it's important to acknowledge that the parties have changed so much. And so we have to continue to educate ourselves. I think that we've seen so many people. I know there's a lot of people in my life who are older that I know that still vote for the Democratic Party, even though they don't align themselves with any of those values anymore, because that party has changed so much since they were the working class. They still think they're voting for Kennedy Democrats when the party has really left them behind. So I think we really need to make sure that there's people in our lives that have access to the information on the parties as they stand now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of people feel left behind right now. I feel like a lot of those Democrats feel left behind by their party, and I feel left behind by mine. So both of our parties have changed. I think Democrats used to be anti-institution. Now it feels like a lot of times that's Republican, that's more conservative people. And maybe our grandkids are going to be like, Mom, you voted for a Republican? Like, what in the world? Those people are so pro-abortion. And I'm going to be like, I know, but they used to not be. So there is a lot of change. And because of that, we really need to stay informed. As I think it was 2 weeks ago, as of this recording, that the Republican national stance changed on abortion and homosexuality. So things are changing. We need to make sure we're informing ourselves when we go and vote. And honestly, I'm not one of those people who's going to be posting on Facebook, don't forget to vote today. If you did forget to vote today, I'm not going to remind you. Because if that's how little importance this has for you and that's how little due diligence you have put in who you're voting for, please don't go vote. Maybe that's why we have two horrible options.
Yeah, there's definitely a set of the Republican Party that I don't understand at this point. I don't understand the MAGA Trump can do absolutely no wrong Republicans. I don't understand the believers that are voting for Democrats.
Right.
I can understand the people that are marginalized, and I can understand the people that say, yes, I understand that he's too far left on these issues, but the economy matters, but national security matters, but inflation matters. There are things that I genuinely believe that the Republican Party can give us a better shot at this point. I don't think that I'm going to love voting for the Republican candidate, but I can understand why people would feel like that's the only option that they have at this point.
Yes, I think Christians should feel free to be able to examine the facts and vote for the candidate who they think will restrain more evil. I think if a Christian can, in good conscience, go to the polls and plug their nose and say, I think there will be less abortion under this candidate than this candidate. I think that is a choice that Christians in good conscience can make. I also think it is a choice that Christians in good conscience at some point, and I think this is going to happen, if not now, at some point, there will be a point where Christians also in good conscience are saying the lesser of evils is still evil. And I wouldn't want a Christian to sin against their conscience in that way either. So, and unfortunately, the parties are getting less different. And that's not how the media talks. The media talks still, even after Trump on the first debate said that he was okay with 80% of the abortions that happen in this country. The media is still talking about Trump like he is going to imprison women who have miscarriages. So the media is not presenting this way. And that's one of the frustrating things about him coming out with that stance. It feels pragmatic. It feels like he was very pro-life when that worked for him. And now that being pro-life is less popular since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, now he's pulling to the left and saying, well, you know, abortions are bad sometimes, but the abortion pill, not so bad. And it feels like we're trying to be pragmatic. But there's more than one frustrating thing about it. One of the frustrating things is it's evil. The second frustrating thing is it's not going to work. No matter how much you try to appeal to the left, Donald Trump, don't you know they will always hate you. They will always consider you are radically to the right, no matter how close to their stance you get. And so it's just, it's not only is it evil, but it's also stupid. You're not going to win over the left by saying that you're okay with the abortion pill, because they want shout your abortion until 9 months. They want, what was it? The governor of Pennsylvania? They want babies lying cold on the table left to die. And so we are not going to win those people over. But Donald Trump, you might lose me. You might lose people like me. And so that's why I am frustrated. But I do think we can still step back and say, I don't like this. This doesn't represent my beliefs, but I think this will be less bad. And I think that in good conscience, you can go make that choice at the polls. I also think in good conscience, you can say, I cannot stand for 80% of abortions to continue. And I'm going to go vote my local elections, and I'm going to write somebody else's name in the presidential box. It's sad, and I'm not telling you to do that, and I'm not telling you what I am going to do. I don't know yet. But I think that we should be able to hear both Christians say both of these things and respect that position.
Yes, I do think that that's important, that we do respect each other, and that we truly not just say this, not just give it lip service, but pray. Pray and educate yourself. Really look at the issues, look at all the candidates. Do not vote for someone because of their gender. Do not vote for someone because of their race. Look at policy. Look at the past. Look at what they're saying currently that might be different than what they've said in the past. But really evaluate the people, evaluate the party platforms, and seek the Lord.
Yeah.
But please educate yourself. Do not go to the ballot box and vote for. terribly frustrated right now that I'm being told that as a woman, I need to vote for a woman. But a couple of months ago, we couldn't define that word. So I'm a little confused. Now we can define it. And because I am one, I must vote for one. That's a little frustrating and confusing to me. So
Yeah, don't let people tell you what you have to think. And that's really frustrating as a woman, and I'm not even a feminist, but I would really like to choose my own thoughts actually. So it's really frustrating being told because I am female, I have to believe a certain way. Or as Christians, we are told we can't we are told it's Christian nationalism to vote our values. If you go vote with your Christian worldview intact, you are a Christian nationalist. And that's frustrating because everybody has a worldview and everybody walks into the ballot box voting based on their worldview. And they want us to think that Taylor Swift can go in and vote based on her worldview and tell all of her followers who she's voting for based on her worldview. But you, because you're a Christian, you need to shut up. And that's not okay. I know Christian nationalism is a real thing. Christians,
I actually am confused by the term. I think so many people use that term different ways, and so it
yes.
really confuses me as to what it actually means.
Well,
As soon as I think I know what it means, then people kind of change the definition mid conversation or mid argument.
because it's mostly a boogeyman to make you shut up. They want to put out this boogeyman of Christian nationalism. It's so scary. And it's mostly to silence you. Whatever Christian nationalism is, listen, nations aren't Christian. People are Christian. Okay? So whatever. You can go vote based on your Christian worldview and your Christian morals. And people will say, well, you can't legislate morality. Yes, you can. That's all we legislate. We can't legislate thought. We can't legislate belief. We can't legislate speech. We can't legislate feelings, but we can legislate behavior. In fact, that is the role of government, to restrain evil behavior and promote good behavior, to allow its citizens to live a peaceful and quiet life. So we are going to go vote based on our morals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whatever
And I do
Christian
think that what you
nationalism
said,
is, it's not that.
yeah, but I think that what you said is very important. Our goal is to live peaceful and quiet lives.
Mm-hmm.
As far as it is unto us to be at peace with those around us. And so just that respect for others, I think, is something that we really need to be careful with. We need to be careful with the way that we talk on the internet or face to face. Because we are called to love others. We do need to have hard conversations with people
Mm-hmm.
and help them understand the party platforms that we just absolutely can't support, because some people don't know. They don't look
Yeah.
deep enough to see what a party represents. So I do think it's important for us to have the hard conversations, but to do it in a way of respect. Speak truth, but do it in love. Do it with kindness. And as far as it's up to you, be at peace.
Yeah.
Especially with other believers.
Yeah. And I want to examine my own self too. Like, is that enough for me just to live a peaceful and quiet life? And I do think it's true. That's really what I want to do. I don't really want to be picketing anything. I don't want to be going to marches. I just want to feed my kids, and I want to play with them, and I want to enjoy them, and I want to take them to church, and I want to love my people, and I don't want drag queens reading at my library. Like I do
Right.
want to live a peaceful and quiet and normal life. I want to be normal. But when we do have to stand up is when innocent lives are being carried away to the slaughter. And that is happening. And like you said, there is so much disinformation. For how much the left talks about disinformation, a lot of it is coming from the left, especially on the abortion issue. We had
Right.
a really big abortion decision in Ohio, and there was so much lying lying about Republicans want to put moms who had miscarriages in jail. Republican wants women to die, and it was not true. I got a mailer, and I live in Ohio, and I got a mailer, return address California, and it was saying miscarriage care is going to be illegal, which was not true. But it was said
Yeah.
so much and so loud, and so it's sad. I do want to live a peaceful and quiet life, but also we do have an obligation to protect those being led away to the slaughter. And so that's the position that we find ourselves in right now. And it is sad.
Yeah. It's sad, and it's just really weighty, and it's easy to see why there are so many people around us that are just burdened with worry and with anxiety about the state of our nation. And this particular election, they may feel really strongly that we've got to get a Republican back in office. But at the same time, I think every believer still has this weight on them. But I also see so many people who are just lost in this despair and this worry. And I've heard so much of, oh, if this election doesn't go the right way, it's absolutely over for us. Well, Christian, take heart, because the Lord is sovereign.
Yeah.
And there's not a single world leader that has ever been put in place without God allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
God's will is going to be done. That doesn't take away our responsibility as American citizens to educate ourselves and cast our vote. It doesn't take away our responsibility as believers to educate ourselves on the Word of God and to go out and act as believers and to act in a way that shows His love to the world and to the nations. But it does give us peace, because the Lord is sovereign. And whether we have a Republican president or a Democratic president, we have a sovereign God who has not, who will not relinquish His control. And day by day, this world feels less like my home.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to feel that way, because this world isn't my home.
Yeah. Yeah. God's purposes will not be thwarted. And even the most evil of governments cannot overcome God's good purposes. Even governments with leaders who love to kill babies. And I was thinking this morning about baby Moses and how Pharaoh would have had him killed, and Jesus, Herod, would have had him killed. And so God's good purposes will never be thwarted by evil leaders. Daniel lived under pagan kings, and the Romans were ruthless, and Paul was in chains, innocent in chains, and we benefit from Paul's chains today, because these Pauline letters that were written from prison, we would not have if he was not in prison, because Paul wouldn't have written the letters. He would have gone to the churches, and I'm sure Paul would have, and he even said in some of these letters, oh, how I'd love to be with you. But he couldn't, because he was in chains. But his chains were for our benefit, because now we have the letters, because he couldn't go to those churches. He had to write them letters. So God's purposes won't be thwarted. And Anna, you already touched on this, but I wanted to go back to prayer, because we can easily underestimate that. Yes, go vote if you're thinking through, and if you've researched, go vote. But everybody pray, because the king's heart is like streams of water in God's hands, and God can change hearts. God changed your heart, and God changed my heart, and we were dead in our trespasses and sins, but God made us alive together with Christ. And so God can take a person who loves to kill babies. God can take an evil ruler and change the heart. And how much glory would he get for that? So I pray for that. And I
absolutely,
as
regardless of which party takes control, we are not just praying for a Republican candidate, but we've actively been praying for our current Democratic president.
Yes.
We have prayed for over 4 years, that hearts would be softened and would be turned. But ultimately, just that the Lord would be glorified. And I would love to see America be part of a worldwide revival of just an outpouring of glory to the Lord. But even if that's not God's plan,
Right.
even if that's not part of God's plan, His plan is good and His plan is perfect. And I don't have to worry and I don't have to have anxiety. I can have hope for my country, but I can also know that my hope is in Jesus and my hope is in eternity with Him and a future with Him. And so I will continue to pray for our Republican candidate. I will continue to pray for our Democratic candidate, because whoever the Lord sees fit to put in office, I pray that they will honor Him and that they will glorify Him and that their hearts will be turned to Him.
Yeah. God's good purposes
But even
won't be
so,
thwarted. And as much as I would love for America to be a beacon of religious liberty and of protecting life, and a nation that people could look to for morality, that might not be God's good purpose. And the Bible talks about when evil rules, when there's even evil rulers, the people groan. And so God's purpose might be evil rulers and groaning. And if that's God's good purpose, then that's God's good purpose, and all things will work together for those whom He has called according to His good purposes. And so, yeah, on election night, or, well, there used to be an election night, but now, whenever we find out who the president is,
election month.
Exactly. Whenever that is, I will turn off the news and I will sleep very soundly. One, because I'm very exhausted and I'm a mom. And two, because I'm trusting God to uphold the universe or to not. Because God is in charge of the rise and fall of nations. And He's allotted our time periods and the boundaries of our dwelling places. And whatever happens, God is in control. And I was never trusting in Joe Biden, and I was never trusting in Donald Trump. And if you were, repent and trust Jesus, and you'll sleep better.
And do, as a believer, know that fear and that anxiety that's weighting you down, that's not of the Lord. And that's not a burden that you have to carry. So pray for your nation, but give it to the Lord and trust Him. Trust Him to bring about His goodwill and purpose, because He will. He will. And so carrying around the burden and the anxiety and the worries is not going to do anything for your personal, physical, or emotional or mental health. And it's certainly not going to do anything for your witness. We need to be a light. We need to be the salt. And if we're walking around with despair and anxiety and worry, then we look like the world. We should be walking around with joy and hope and peace, because that's of the Lord. And we have that security and that knowledge of resting in His sovereignty. So pray, educate yourself, and let go of the worry. And I think it's fun that you mentioned election night, because I do remember sitting at home. We were homeschooled, and we were those homeschool kids. My mom printed out a map for us and gave us blue crayons and red crayons, and we colored in the states as the votes came in. And until Bush and Gore, we went to bed knowing who was president. And then I remember falling asleep that election night and waking up the next morning and my map wasn't done. And who's the president? I have to finish. And Mom got to tell me, well, we don't know yet. And then now that seems like it's actually pretty common. It seemed really crazy then.
Yeah.
But now it's normal.
Yeah, we'll have to like hang the maps on the wall for our kids, so that every couple of days they can go fill in another state or whatever.
Go out of state.
Because, it's 2024. It takes us so long to count now.
See, some things get harder with technology, I tell you what.
So true.
Well, this election cycle could continue to get crazier and crazier. For the first time since, I think, 1968, we have an incumbent who's not seeking re-election, and we have a candidate who's trying to be the first president since Grover Cleveland to serve non-consecutive presidential terms. So regardless, this is a very interesting election just as a follower of history. So just love your country, but love the Lord more and trust him. Do your due diligence. Educate yourself. And if you educate yourself and pray, then go vote.
Yes, and keep praying. God's kingdom come, God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Praise the Lord for that. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this talk, and I'm sure there will be plenty more to come about the state of our nation and politics. But think about the things that we've talked about and think about where your vote can go that will help restrain evil and promote goodness. We'll see you next time.